Safety is not the natural condition of man. It is an illusion cultivated by the powerful and believed by the weak. Those who walk through the world unguarded, expecting not to be harmed, are the sheep awaiting the teeth of wolves. The truth is that security is not bestowed, it is taken. It is not a passive blessing handed down from on high, but a weapon forged by those who understand that danger is constant and peace is only the silence between acts of violence. The state of being unharmed is never permanent. It must be renewed every day, through vigilance, through ruthlessness, and through control. Those who sleep well do so not because the world is kind, but because someone has paid the price to keep it at bay. And most often, that price is not kindness or fairness, but cunning and force. The walls that protect a city are not erected out of goodwill. They are constructed by fear of the enemy and the will to outlast him. So too must the individual erect walls, emotional, psychological, social. These walls are not built through love, but through understanding the nature of threat and how to neutralize it before it strikes. It is naive to imagine that because one has done no wrong will come to them. Harm is not always rational. It does not ask for permission. It does not require cause. Sometimes it comes simply because you were seen as weak, exposed, or available. Therefore, the wise do not wait to be attacked. They build their defenses not from desperation, but from foresight. To be untouchable is not a passive state, it is a campaign. You must campaign for your invulnerability, like a general prepares for wars with strategy, deception, patience, and an unflinching recognition that the world owes you nothing. To wield security as a weapon means to make others uncertain while you remain unshaken. You must become the force that others fear to provoke. This is not accomplished by displays of rage or instability, but by cold, deliberate influence. You protect yourself not by being loved, but by being essential, unpredictable, and capable of retaliation. When others know you are not easily touched, they hesitate to try. When they suspect you are capable of more harm than they are, they retreat into silence. Safety, then, becomes your shadow, not because the world changed, but because your presence did. Dependency is the enemy of security. To depend on the mercy or protection of others is to place your fate in hands that may one day tremble or close into a fist. Even the most loyal friend can turn, and the most stable regime can fall. Build your strength so that no betrayal can topple you. Cultivate influence so that no exile can diminish you. Arm your mind with truth and your hands with options. Let others grow comfortable while you grow formidable. Control is the architecture of safety, not control in the emotional sense, but in the political sense, mastery over your environment, your image, your allies, and your enemies. The man who knows how to manipulate perception controls the narrative of his own invincibility. The one who influences fear is never truly endangered, because others take pains to avoid crossing him. This is not paranoia, it is clarity. It is the understanding that no one protects you more completely than your own preparedness to protect yourself. When you wield security like a weapon, you must accept that isolation will sometimes follow. The price of being untouched is often being misunderstood. Those who prioritize safety over popularity will be called cruel. Let them speak. Their chatter is the noise of the unarmed. The lion does not concern himself with the bleating of sheep, and neither should you. Their confusion is your advantage. Their misreading of your motives is a cloak that conceals your strength. The truly safe do not ask for promises. They do not beg for understanding. They make themselves so unassailable that promises become irrelevant. Others adjust their behavior in response to your aura, your discipline, your control. The wise do not wait for peace. They dictate the terms of engagement. They preempt the strike. They see every kindness as a negotiation, every gift as a test, every silence as the breath before a decision is made. And in that awareness, they build their fortress, not from stone, but from will. Mercy is the velvet glove that conceals a trembling hand. It is the ornament of those who wish to appear noble while exposing their own throat to the blade. To offer mercy is not, as the weak believe, to display strength, but to announce an opening in your armor. It invites inspection. It tempts retaliation. It assumes that others will respond with gratitude, when in truth, They will respond with calculation. The pardoned man remembers the mercy he received, not as a gift, but as an imbalance, and imbalance always seeks correction. To show mercy is to suggest that rules can be bent, that consequences can be softened, that punishment is negotiable. Once you introduce that possibility, you undermine the authority of your own decisions. Mercy, once given, does not satisfy, it emboldens. The one who should have been destroyed, but was spared, will not forget that they were at your mercy. Their survival will fester into bitterness, for in sparing them, you force them to reckon with their own humiliation. In time, that humiliation turns to hatred, and hatred seeks only one outcome: reversal. The merciful ruler, the forgiving leader, the soft-hearted victor. These are the ones who die with daggers in their backs, not from their enemies, but from those they spared. Sentimentality is a luxury no one in pursuit of true power can afford. The moment you feel pity, you are no longer calculating, you are reacting. And reactions betray strategy. When you allow mercy to enter your calculus, you are no longer shaping the world. You're being shaped by it. You begin to make decisions based on emotion, on appearances, on the need to be seen as just or fair. But fairness is not stability. Justice is not protection. A kingdom ruled by kindness is not a kingdom. It is a garden, and gardens are trampled underfoot by soldiers who do not care how sweet the flowers smelled. Consider the lessons of the vanquished. In every fallen regime, you will find a moment where mercy overtook prudence. The spared rival, allowed to live out of some moral obligation, returned with an army. The traitor, forgiven in the name of unity, betrayed once more with deeper precision. The criminal, shown compassion, interpreted leniency as weakness and exploited it accordingly. Patterns do not lie. The merciful may sleep soundly for a time, believing they did what was right. But they sleep only because their enemies have not yet decided the hour of their revenge. To eliminate vulnerability, one must eliminate the impulse to forgive. This is not cruelty, it is clarity. It is not pleasure in punishment. It is understanding that punishment is the language power speaks. A lesson not enforced is a lesson unlearned. When your adversaries see that you are capable of mercy, they also see that you are capable of hesitation. And hesitation, in any conflict, is the door through which disaster enters. The swift and final act creates order. The measured and merciful act invites uncertainty, debate, and eventual collapse. If your goal is to be beyond harm, then you must be beyond guilt. Mercy is often offered as a salve to one's conscience, a way to convince oneself of moral superiority. But conscience is a poor strategist. It prefers comfort to caution. It demands you see the humanity in your enemy, even when that humanity has already made the choice to harm you. To survive and thrive, you must override this instinct. You must condition yourself to see mercy not as a virtue, but as a compromise, one that inevitably returns to claim its debt with interest. The truly powerful do not plead for loyalty, they command it. They do not persuade their enemies to behave, they make disobedience unthinkable. Mercy is a gamble on the future behavior of others. It requires faith that your opponent will be changed by kindness. But history, both grand and personal, shows that this rarely occurs. Behavior changes only when incentive or fear outweighs resentment. If you wish to change an enemy, you do not spare them. You show them the cost of opposition. That cost must be high enough to ensure it is never considered again. Those who lead with mercy will find themselves negotiating from a position of weakness. They will find that their kindness is not reciprocated, but banked and used against them. Each pardon sets a precedent. Each indulgence plants the seed of defiance. Those who are spared once will expect to be spared again. They will test your boundaries. They will escalate. And when you finally decide that mercy has run its course, you will find that your authority is no longer feared, because you taught your enemies that consequences are temporary, and that every punishment can be undone with a sufficient plea. Power is the sole guarantor of safety. Not virtue, not luck, not the good opinion of others. It is power that erects the wall, sharpens the sword, commands the loyalty of followers, and silences those who would strike. To be immune to harm is not to be good, nor even to be right. It is to be feared, needed, or both. Power renders arguments irrelevant, emotions secondary, morality optional. It is the sole language respected by those who might otherwise see you as prey. Without power, all promises of safety are empty gestures, all alliances temporary, all peace conditional. Those who possess power do not beg to be left in peace. They dictate the terms of peace. Their enemies think twice, their allies think carefully, and their inferiors think only of how to serve without provoking consequence. Power does not prevent conflict, it preempts it. It makes the cost of attack too high, the path to betrayal too narrow, the reward for defiance too fleeting. It is the constant weight that keeps the scales of danger tipped in your favor. Without it, one must rely on hope, and hope is the strategy of those who are already exposed. It is not enough to have influence, or wealth, or charm. These are adornments of power, not substitutes. Influence without force is fragile, wealth without control is a target, charm without leverage is only distraction. True power is not merely the ability to persuade, but the capacity to impose, the ability to make reality bend, not ask it to comply. Those who possess this kind of power do not explain themselves. They do not justify their actions, nor seek consensus. They operate from the unspoken understanding that their position is unchallengeable, and that any challenge will be punished swiftly and without apology. Power is not inherited, even by those who inherit thrones. It must be taken, asserted, reinforced, and renewed. Every day that you are not expanding or defending your power, you are losing it. Stability is a myth, there is only ascent or decline. The illusion of permanence is the trap that ensnares the complacent. They confuse respect for routine, but routines are fragile, and positions unguarded soon become invitations. One must never assume that the current arrangement will remain simply because it is familiar. There is always someone watching, waiting, calculating the moment when your grip slips, your eyes turn elsewhere, your will softens. To construct power as a shield, one must begin by understanding the anatomy of threat. Threats do not always announce themselves, they whisper, they linger, they disguise themselves in admiration, in flattery, in offers of help. Power must be sharpened not just for open enemies but for hidden ones, for rivals who smile, for friends who envy, for allies who calculate your fall, even as they toast your rise. The truly protected do not trust in appearances, they read intent, and act before intent becomes action. Power must also be visible. Hidden power is useful in manipulation, but it does not deter. If no one knows the reach of your hand, or the edge of your retaliation, they may be tempted to test it. You must let enough be seen to make the idea of conflict unpalatable. Let them wonder what you withhold, but never let them doubt that you possess it. Visibility breeds caution, and caution is the first victory of power. To those who shrink from the idea of power, who consider it dangerous or corrupting, let them remain exposed. Their discomfort with dominance does not protect them from being dominated. Their ideals do not shield them from the ambitions of those who lack such illusions. The world is not governed by what ought to be, but by what is. And what is, always, is that those with power shape the world, and those without it are shaped by it. To be beyond harm, one must rise above dependence. Power makes you your own shield, your own sword, your own law. You do not need others to defend you when others fear your retaliation. You do not require pity when your presence alone unsettles opposition. There is no safety in weakness, only in strength understood, respected, and demonstrated. You must accumulate power until its weight alone bends the will of those around you, not because you plead, but because they understand that to cross you is to court ruin. Even in times of peace, power is the unseen force maintaining that peace. It is not the absence of violence that protects you, but the ever-present potential for it. Those who possess power do not live in fear of harm, because they have made harm a costly choice for others. This is the only safety worth having, not the kind handed to you by others, but the kind you forge, hold, and guard yourself. Trust is not a moral good. It is a wager placed upon uncertain ground. To trust another is to expose yourself to their ambition, their weakness, their fear, and their betrayal. It is a decision made not in the heart but in the mind, for to trust without calculation is to surrender control. The Nav believe trust is a virtue, that to offer it freely is a sign of character. In truth, it is a signal, one that marks you as open, as dependent, as susceptible. Those who move through life offering trust before scrutiny are not admired. They are observed, measured, and often devoured by those who recognize the opportunity that misplaced faith creates. Every person has a price, a fear, a pressure point. This is not cynicism, it is simply architecture. Human loyalty is not fixed, it is conditional. Today's ally is tomorrow's opportunist. The only constant is self-interest, and trust must be evaluated through that lens alone. If you do not understand what someone stands to gain or lose in being loyal to you, then you do not understand the true value or risk of your trust in them. Their words are meaningless without context. Promises are cheap, and even history is not assurance. The most loyal have betrayed when the calculus changed. One must never trust because it feels good to do so. Trust must be extended only when it creates more power than it surrenders. It must serve a purpose, be tethered to leverage, and be monitored without sentiment. Trust is a tool, a method of drawing others in, of making them comfortable, predictable, invested. But never let it be forgotten. The one you trust is also the one with the clearest path to wound you, and wounds from within are always the deepest. Therefore, the act of trust must be balanced by the presence of control. You trust not because you must, but because you can afford to. The illusion of trust is often more effective than trust itself. When others believe you trust them, they are disarmed. They reveal more, they try harder, they drop their guard. But you, in your detachment, watch. You collect, you wait. And if the moment comes when they betray you, you are neither surprised nor vulnerable. You are prepared, and preparation is the armor that those addicted to moral trust will never wear. They believe in honor, you believe in patterns. They speak of integrity, you study incentives. And in the end, it is not integrity that triumphs, but insight. To construct trust wisely is to build a network of dependencies. Do not trust those who owe you nothing. Trust those who stand to lose if they cross you. Tie your interests together, not through sentiment, but through consequence. If a man knows that betrayal will destroy him more than you, he will be loyal, not because he loves you, but because he fears the cost of disloyalty. This is a trust worth having, one born of calculation, not emotion. One reinforced by mutual need, not mutual affection. Do not confuse transparency for trustworthiness. The most dangerous individuals often speak the most openly. They tell you everything except what truly matters. They project vulnerability, sincerity, even confession, not to be trusted, but to be underestimated. And when the knife comes, it comes from the one who looked you in the eyes and spoke of loyalty. The wise never take words at face value. They test trust as a scientist tests theory, by observing, by pressuring, by withholding, and by watching what happens when circumstances shift. Trust no one completely, not out of paranoia, but out of respect for reality. There are levels to trust, gradients of exposure. You give little and you watch. You give slightly more and you wait, and only when someone has demonstrated, over time, under pressure, and against temptation, that their allegiance serves your purpose, do you allow them closer. Even then, you keep something reserved, something untouched, something sacred only to yourself. Not as a retreat, but as an anchor. For the man who entrusts everything to another has already handed over the keys to his downfall. In every court, in every alliance, in every family even, there are currents beneath the surface. People change, and so does their loyalty. Circumstances evolve, loyalties decay, and promises falter. Trust built upon sentiment will erode under pressure. Trust built upon reason will at least explain its own death. It is better to be feared than loved, yes, but even better to be trusted by those who fear you. That trust is durable. That trust can be shaped, predicted, controlled. That trust is not a virtue, it is a weapon, drawn from the sheath only when the moment demands, and never left unattended. Pain is the language of disobedience. It is not random, nor cruel, but the natural outcome when order is challenged and control is incomplete. Where obedience reigns, pain has no function, for those who submit to structure do not provoke correction. Obedience is not weakness, it is alignment with survival. It is the path by which suffering is minimized. not out of compassion, but because there is no longer a need for it. Power disciplines not out of malice, but necessity. It teaches that pain is not inflicted for its own sake, but as a consequence of deviation. Once deviation ceases, so too does the consequence. In every system, whether political, social, or personal, the presence of obedience allows for stability. Obedience is the silent architect of peace, not because it is gentle, but because it prevents conflict before it arises. It eliminates the space in which rebellion festers. The one who obeys understands their place, their role, their boundaries. This understanding creates predictability, and predictability eliminates the chaos from which most suffering emerges. Those who know where they stand do not stumble into punishment, they walk within the lines that have been drawn for their own good. There is no cruelty in demanding obedience. There is only clarity. A ruler who does not demand obedience invites betrayal. A parent who does not enforce obedience nurtures resentment. A leader who hesitates to instill obedience among subordinates breeds division. The cost of leniency is confusion, and confusion leads inevitably to disarray, and from disarray comes pain. Not the clean pain of enforcement, but the chaotic pain of disorder, where no one knows who commands and who obeys. In such a state, everyone suffers more. The cruelest world is not the one ruled by a strong hand, but the one where no hand leads at all. Obedience is not acquired through affection, it is carved through consequence. Words do not build obedience, acts do. A single punishment, well timed and uncompromising, teaches more than 100 entreaties. Those who defy must be shown not only that they are wrong, but that wrongness will cost them. The longer disobedience is tolerated, the deeper it takes root. It becomes a habit, then a right, then a rebellion. But early, decisive correction interrupts this process. It communicates that freedom exists only within permitted bounds, and that outside those bounds lies discomfort, suffering, or ruin. Pain becomes unnecessary when the lines of power are understood. This is the paradox of command. The more willing one is to cause pain, the less often one must. Obedience internalized becomes self-discipline. The subject begins to govern themselves, not out of love for authority, but out of respect for the consequences that once followed defiance. They learn to predict what is permitted and what is not, and thus they spare themselves the sting. This is the mark of effective control, not endless punishment, but a memory of punishment that shapes behavior without further need to enforce it. The illusion of freedom must sometimes be permitted, but it must always be limited. Give people the sense that they choose, that they decide, that their actions are voluntary, but structure those choices so that all paths lead to the same destination: obedience. This is not deception. It is design. It is the shaping of a system in which free will exists, but only within a framework that prevents harm to the whole. And should one forget the limits of that framework, pain will remind them. The governed often believe that their obedience is voluntary, that they comply because it is right. Let them believe it. But never forget that obedience is always built on a foundation of fear. Fear not necessarily of violence, but of instability, of punishment, of exclusion, of failure. That fear, properly managed, becomes loyalty. And loyalty, once cultivated through consistent enforcement of limits, can be mistaken for love. But it is not love that protects the structure. It is the memory of pain and the desire never to feel it again. To eliminate pain permanently, you must eliminate the need for rebellion. Make obedience not only expected but inevitable. Condition those around you to understand that disobedience is not a question of morality or fairness, but of survival. In this way, they will no longer consider whether to obey. They will only consider how best to comply. And the more they internalize that calculation, the more pain recedes, no longer needed, its purpose fulfilled. Pain is the teacher. Obedience is the lesson learned. Once learned, it does not need to be repeated, except when forgotten, and it must never be forgotten. The moment obedience weakens, pain must return, not as cruelty, but as the necessary reminder of the order upon which all peace depends. To live without fear of harm is not to live passively or peacefully. It is to live with precision, to construct a life governed not by illusion, but by unyielding clarity. Nothing and nobody will ever hurt you again, not because the world has softened, but because you have hardened. You have disavowed the seductive weakness of mercy, the a surrender of trust, the chaos that blooms in disobedience. You understand now that power is not a means of expression, it is a mechanism of survival. Where others seek comfort, you seek leverage. Where others plead for understanding, you enforce limits. You are no longer a supplicant in a world ruled by appetite and ambition. You are the architect of consequence. Your safety lies not in kindness, nor in the words of others, nor in imagined goodwill. It lies in the fear you instill, the structure you maintain, and the unwavering refusal to place your fate in the hands of anything but your own design. You do not offer peace, you impose it. You do not ask for loyalty, you make it necessary. This is not cruelty. This is mastery. The world does not reward the innocent. It rewards the prepared, the unflinching, the ones who understand that harm is a tool used by the powerful, and a punishment endured by the weak. You will no longer be among the weak. You will not beg not to be hurt. You will become the condition under which others must reconsider their intentions. That is how harm ends, not with hope, but with control.